We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We got stuck here for the winter, blinded by golden dollar signs. We built some simple structures, temporary, not permanent. Each year we dug much deeper. Each year things got more serious. Each year our hearts grew weaker, blinded by golden dollar signs. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. Put a lump of coal in my hand, squeeze just as tight as I can. Hope for a brand new diamond. I know it's slight, but it's all I can. I promise, honey, that when we get paid, we'll pack our things and we'll move away 1,000 miles from this frozen lake. We'll find a place where we both can stay. We'll find a city with 1,000,000 people. Find an apartment where the rent is real low. We'll disappear and no one will notice. How about $1? We could both live downtown. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We never meant to stay here. We were here for the gold, here for the gold, here for the gold. We never meant to stay here. We're just down animals with our paws in the hole. Cause we gold. Now we're stuck in a small town, out of the shield and lost its appeal. Long ago we wake up at dawn and kiss our wives before we slowly make our way into the hint where we will forget the faces of our children and our small red light. Should've got that lucky penny while I had the chance. We never meant to stay here, no. We never meant to stay here. We never meant to stay here, no. We never meant to stay here.
Egg.
Jesse disappeared again. Didn't go to Edmonton. Didn't talk to any friends. Like many others who try to be someone instead of who they really Jesse came from Arkansas, had a house and sold it off. Been a husband for too long, never been a lucky one. I am a secret government agent, armed with lies about secret government things. Oh yeah, I have secret government documents could knock you dead from your regular citizen lives. Oh yeah, and I'll break into your regular citizen homes with my government knife. I do regular citizen things, but that's where it ends. My secret government mind is a rare breed. I can't love, I can't feel or have passion.
Egg.
I don't mind my secret government facts. Tell me why what many normal citizens say. Love causes pain and pain hurts and now passion is dead. Before I became a secret agent spy, I was put on this earth with a regular life, smiling and laughing and singing away. But I could not keep my curious mind at bay. I set out to answer a question of mine about human heart versus rational mind. See, I thought if I planted my heart in the ground, I could grow a heart tree and spread my love around. I enlisted the help of a very close friend. We ripped out my heart so the test could begin. We watered my heart and we let the sun feed it vitamins.
Oh, I've totally forgot to set up my voodoo avatar. I was too busy reading Yuri. Fuck. Give me a second.
Sprout. Then I dug up my heart and I found it was nothing but dirt. My heart had become
Egg.
now I'm a secret government agent. I'm with the past of our regular citizen lives. I can't love, I can't feel or have passion. I don't mind. You can't break my government heart. Oh no. You cannot break my secret agent heart. You cannot break my secret agent heart. You cannot break my
Okay, hi, now I'm here. Hi. And again. Gonna pick my shit. Fuck, I fucked it up. But that's okay.
You cannot break my secret agent heart.
Okay, cool. Hi everyone! It's an early stream because I wanted to do some more 3D work, but I didn't really have time in the evenings this week, so we're doing it now. Hi. I'm just gonna get working. I streamed yesterday. I don't have much news to say, but look, you might recognize something or see something new here in this. You know, we've got our beautiful couches that we made on our beautiful table that we've made in our beautiful room that I made. Well, the floor I made on stream, but everything else was made off stream, including the texture for the floor. But look, there is a PlayStation now. Ain't it nice? The PlayStation, the PlayStation. I've been looking at a wristwatch scotch tape to her gauntlet because it's too small, getting jump scared and scrambling out of her chair like, oh shit, I'm late. I totally forgot I hadn't set up this, all it is yet. I was reading Other Side Picnic. But yeah, some of you will have seen this, that I made a PlayStation 1 and controllers in my spare time. And the rumors are true, I did do that. And I put them in here also, so there's a little bit of decoration. I do aim to have like more stuff later. I'm gonna put like some coasters and glasses and stuff on here, you know, that'll be nice. But for now we're just focusing on the big furniture pieces. I'm looking forward to seeing if you use them in some promo images in the future. I just might. Who knows? I don't, but I might. You're gonna put that drink on a coaster? Yeah, please do. I am very much that person though. I am very much a person who's like, could you please use a coaster? You know? Speaking of coasters, I've got my favorite mug, which is a fox, on a coaster on my desk, and I'm pouring tea into it now. There we go. Alright. And I've poured the tea so that I can have the sippy, which was redeemed. Other redemptions. Sure, redemptions are the eggs, which we will be doing now. Beep. Wow, gosh golly fucking Christ, it's time for the eggs. Starting with Vex Fidel, Bunshines, Green Clunk, Lucina of Stardust, Muzzle Flash, Dynalope, and Thy Dungeon Gal. Beep. There we go. Not a lot of eggs for now, but that makes sense because it's only it is an early day stream. So, you know, a lot of my regular viewers will be asleep or like at work and stuff, you know? So, not too surprising. Okay, we did that. Now we can get started. So, beep. Turn that on. There. So, as you can see, for this little area in the living room, there's also this stuff. But for this little area, we still need a carpet, a thing. What is that gonna be? Like a bookcase or a display case? I guess it's where games are gonna go. Oh wait, I could like put I could put a box for every game, like a case. I could put a case for every game I've beaten on stream in there. That would be cute. This one is for the freaks in Europe, that is true. Or those with really, really broken sleeping schedules, in which case I'm so sorry for you. Woo! Han Apocalypse, hi! Thank you so much for following, welcome. How are you?
18 plus 0000 explosions.
Meltonov, thank you very much for subscribing. So yeah, I could do that. That would be cool. I do intend for this also be a VR chat world, so that would be cute, you know? Like you can go in here and then be like, oh, wait, she played Shadow the Hedgehog? I gotta look at the VOD. And then you look at it and she's like, wow, she's miserable. But for today, I want to work on these two items, or at least this one, starting with this one. Figures of alts. I'm thinking I would more likely put those in here. Hello, broadcast queen skeleton in the background. You look very scary over there. Also a U-boat skeleton right there. I was thinking of putting figures and such in here. Specifically, as you can see, I want to use this for like fan art. I think that would be cute. Although, how would I do it? What if it gets full? I've also thought about like having a gallery in the castle somewhere, and you could it's just an ever expanding, really deep hallway with like art on both sides, you know? Like it gets like scary at a point, and you're like, God, I don't want to walk through all of that. I could make it a maze, you get lost in it, that's also fun. Or I've also thought about it's actually just one frame, and it cycles through all the fan art I've ever gotten, similar to what's on the break screen. But I don't know how I would do that. I would have to get someone. I mean, it probably wouldn't be too difficult to program. Not for me, it would be. I don't know how to program, but like, if I get someone to program it. Anyway, I could also have figures of alts, but that's kind of, isn't that kind of odd? Because then you just have figures of yourself. I guess fan art is the same thing, but like, a figure of an alt would just be the same model but scaled down, so that's just like holding an exact replica of yourself but small. That's kind of weird. Anyway, we'll see. For now, I want to make this. Would you call it a cabinet? Wait, are you guys not attached? Are you not one thing? That's stupid. Also, just a moment. Let me get rid of the table. There you go. Good. So I want to make this today. Would you call this a cabinet? I feel like I would call it a cabinet. But would you? Maybe I'm wrong. I've never been that good at knowing what furniture is what. What did I call this thing in Cube? I called it a cube. I didn't give it a name because it's only a block out. That makes sense. Oh no, they're making Gauntlet Queen into an infinite maze roguelike. It also has deck building. And other... What are other indie game tropes? Queer rep, I guess? But that's actually like a... I was gonna say that's actually a good thing, as if deck building games are bad. They're just oversaturated, that's all. Anyway, I gotta make this, whatever it is. So we're gonna copy this and move it over here to 0, 0, 0. And then, which is the front? I never actually, I can never remember. Hold on a second. I think it's, okay. Yeah, I think I'm right. Whatever. Just gonna rotate it a little bit. There we go. To origin. And then we're going to take that out of here. I did call it a cabinet. Wait, but I thought I called it a cube. Whatever. I'm putting it in assets. Would have to rename this to something else now. Wait, huh? Oh wait, that's carpet. That's right. Okay, cabinet. Block out, cabinet. There we go. And now I can name that one just cabinet. Once I find it. Hello? Oh, there you are. Okay, call you cabinet. Oh, right, okay, this thing is called cube. Got it, it's fine. The mesh is called cube. It's all good. Also doing 3D commissions while you work. Yay, we're working together. You don't have mini inanimate clones of yourselves in your house? No. Should I? Am I doing something wrong? That is not drinkable yet, that's too hot. If it's what a TV sits on, then the term is an entertainment unit. That's dumb. I'm gonna call it a cabinet. Entertainment unit. Fulfillment center. Fuck off. I'm procrastinating on learning Blender for things, so I'll absorb knowledge from this stream, I guess. I hope I can help. Okay, so let me get my vision. Let's see. Okay, alright, okay. No. Maybe if I do a little bit like the PlayStation. Okay, so we can make it like that and then move it. Because I wanted to fit in with the rest of the furniture, so fuck off. Let's see. Okay, so we definitely want a little bit of a slant, ideally upward. Oh, yeah, alright, okay, I could do it like that. Because the thing that I'm thinking of now is if I make the let's make it like slanted upwards. Hold on a second, let me. This is crazy. I'm gonna do something so crazy that I never do for these pieces of furniture, but it's very normal to do when you're designing something. When you're designing a video game asset. No, that doesn't work. Just a moment. Go here. We're going to draw it. We're gonna do concept art. I know. I'm insane for this. Saw your go live on Tumblr. You said it's early afternoon for you, so may I ask what time zone you're in? For some reason I thought you were in the USA. I am not, but people do often think that I'm an American when they only hear my voice, including when I'm speaking Dutch to other Dutch people. So that's good. Sometimes I think I'm English. I think it's because some of my pronunciations are more English, but like for the most part it's American. Anyway, I'm Dutch. I'm the Netherlands, so my time zone is Amsterdam, I guess. Where is my? Uh-oh. Hey now, Mamma Mia. Why is my tablet not connected? What? A fellow English? What, TT? Oh wait, I think it just connected. There we go. Do it, please. Oh. Yay! That explains why I haven't seen you on Twitch for so long. Well, I usually stream at the time that is most convenient for most of the world. I tend to stream in my evenings, so I get mistaken for an American based on my voice a lot, despite being born and raised British. It's wild. Yeah, it's weird, huh? Your English sounds very generic American to me. I mean, that's just it's because I'm good at English, quote unquote. Like I never really had like a Dutch accent when I was speaking English. Part of that I think is, well, it's kind of funny. I mean, part of it is just because I grew up with a lot of English stuff, you know, movies and shows, because we used to have like not everything gets translated, gets like dubbed when it comes to the Netherlands. It does more now, but it used to less. So stuff like Drake and Josh, for example, I would just watch in English, you know, with subtitles, and like games, of course. And my dad lived in Scotland and England. Well, specifically in Scotland for a while, but it was kind of like on the border, so he went wherever. So he also has a lot of like English mannerisms and speech pattern, speech quirks and stuff. So I was you know, I had a lot of English growing up. So I think that's why I'm more convincingly American and or English than other Dutch people. A lot of Dutch people anyway. Of course, I'm not the only one. But if you hear like some more Dutch English, it's very different. I can't even imitate it. Like, I hear it and I can recognize it. If I hear a Dutch person speak English with a Dutch accent, I'll know it instantly. I cannot fucking tell you what it sounds like. I could not do it. It's very funny to me. Like, I was taken for English when I was younger due to the autism. I got asked if I was born here a lot. Well, Brody, you also don't sound like very Australian to me, you know? You just sound like whatever. I mean, when I say Australian, I mean like the commonly heard Australian, stereotypical, I guess, you know. In my case, my mom spent a few years in the UK while her accent was developing, so I blame her. That's funny. Okay, so what was I doing? Oh yes. This is gonna be. Whoa, I was gonna say this is gonna be symmetrical, but what if it's not? Wait, what if it's not though? Cause it's. Are you fucking kidding me? Are they drilling right now? Can you guys hear that? Fuck. Well, they're not doing it right now, but yeah. They're always drilling here. It's insane. Like, almost every single fucking day. Sometimes at like 11 p.m. they're drilling. It's fucking insane. Anyway, a Dutch guy I knew years ago learned his English from American TV shows, so he sounds very American Dutch. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I also learned most of my English not from school. By the time we had English in school, I was basically fluent already. I learned it from like all kinds of pieces of media. Have you made a creature yet? There you go. I've drawn a little creature for you, Jody. Ooh, AOL is a horrible confession. That sounds fun. I remember the first D&D game I was part of. One of the players was a Dutch foreign uni student and she had a very strong accent. Yeah, when someone has a Dutch English accent, you can hear it very, very clearly. It's very funny. Someone years ago told me you were Spanish! So for the longest time, I doubted myself so much. And what a Spanish accent. Who? What? They told me it's Spanish. What? Where does that come from? Why the fuck heb je het over? Spaans? Waarom Spaans? Ik ben maar 1 keer in Spanje geweest, überhaupt. Spaans. Wat is dat? Ik probeer like een Spaans... Ik kan helemaal geen Spaans. Waarom zou ik uit Spanje komen? Wat is dat dan? Ik wil heel graag weten waarom ze dat dachten. Misschien zeiden ze het als een grap of zo. They thought you were Spanish? Mamma mia, that's not Spanish. I think. There are people in the USA, supposedly, who do not think Spain is a real country. So I've heard, which is hilarious to me, because they just think Spain isn't real. They just think Spanish is a language. Assuming these people exist, which I can very easily believe. What am I doing? Okay, anyway, points at Zoe, La Reina del Guante. Spanish, you know, the Mexican language. Exactly, yeah. Anyway, so my plan is, right, if I make it asymmetrical, and I like this actually. Oh,
Alright, so, come on, there we go. My plan is that it was asymmetrical. I can, one side is like, so you have the cabinet over here, the big display cabinet, and then you have the cabinet, which is like this. I am not as much in my voice right now. I'm having a hard time. Anyway, it's like this, you know?
that seems like it would be nice. And then we have the TV on here. Ow. Hooray! Anyway, you guys get it. A little guy who refuses to change channels unless you say please. Yes. See, in the future, everybody got too rude, and in an effort to change that, they started to make appliances be little dudes. And it's pretty cool. It's helping a lot. The little dudes have a lot of detail, like they got little teeth. Does it look like teeth? No. Well, they got depth in them. They can wear hats. You can buy hats for them. And then you have to make, in the future, everything is a little guy, a little man, a thing, a creature, some form of gremlin. It's true. It's true. Anyway, so we got that, and then gonna do this. So it'll be like this. Wow, and then over here we'll put like a we'll put the thing like that. And then here will be a thing that you can open. I know, shit's wild. And we'll even have a second one because we're so crazy. But then the question is, does this one go like this? And if it does, how does that work? Because I'm gonna put the handle here. So how did the hinges work on this side? How would that work? I don't understand. So I think it'll be more just like this. Hinge only on top? That's no. I think that would be not very good. See, we can do it like this, but then there's just this empty space here, and it looks weird, like you're acknowledging it. That it looks kind of weird that it's slanted on one side. It's a rolly door thing. Ooh. Really cool and strong hinge. This makes sense to me, thank you. We can maybe do this. You see where these are still the little compartments, and then this is just like for show, but it's just so that it's not empty there. Can you make the cabinet also a little man? It sort of looks sad. Like this is the mouth. I'll do it like this, hold on. Yay! Now it's good again. I think it's good now. He's sad because he's being stepped on. No, he's happy because he's being helpful to the little man who is the TV. Who gets a soda. He's a soda now. They are best friends. I think this is good enough. That's fine. It'll look good, I think. Forget 3D streams. Can we just have drawing random shit streams? I think I did one of those ones. Oh, I forgot about this little dude. This little dude's fun, actually. What a fun little dude this is. Melon. Wait, your eyes should be further apart, I'm so sorry. Yay! Little guy, little thingy. Oh, I love them so. Yay. This is delightful. Anyway, back to it. Look at that little thing do a big steppy. Yay! This is what a college education gets you, the ability to draw little dudes whenever you wish. It's making me feel very powerful that I can just do this. Okay. Let me go. Let me get. Let me get the concept art on screen so we can always look at it and know what we're working on. Save as. There we go, and there. Good. Also, I think there was an egg at some point. Yes, it was Soda Vampire's egg. Thank you, Maven. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so egg. Mel's enough. Thank you as well. Okay. Back over here. Alright, so we're going to kill this. We're just gonna be dead. Fuck you. We don't need you anymore. You no longer fit into our perfect utopia. Alright. So we want to. Let's see. Let me check in with the. It's probably like this. Okay, extrude faces. Do I do this or do I put this in the texture? I guess I've been doing a similar thing with the other.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, Squishy. Squishy, that's cute. Squishy. Okay, yeah, these ones have also had like a little bit of a in the bottom, so we'll keep that the same because it's like we bought all of these from IKEA, you know? They're all part of the same set. So we got that, leave it as is. Ow. I guess we're done. I think we're good now. It's just texturing from here on out. That seems too simple.
Yippee!
I'm gonna, okay, no. Thanks for coming, folks. I might be seeing things, but the cabinet's rotated slightly on the Z-axis. It is! Oh, Hana, you're correct. Thanks so much for finding that. Yay. I would do a thumbs up, but for some reason I can't really do that very well. Anyway, thanks. You are rotated now. Cool. This is whoa! Is this modeling for anything in particular? It is for my castle that I live in and that I use for like fun promo shots sometimes and like videos and things. And I also want to make it a VR chat world. That's what it's for. You can see here the go. God, I hate trying to move around and I hate trying to move around in Blender so much. Fuck. Behold my finished treasure to the throne room. Isn't it beautiful? Ta-da. I think it's nice. There's also bruh. Ooh, come on. Okay, we can't. Fuck. Oh my god. Okay, well, broadcast screen room. Broadcast queen's room is there, but we can't look at it right now. I've seen thronier rooms. That's okay. It's not all about the throne. Also, it's a repurposed warehouse, so it's only gonna get so good, you know? Okay. There, I think that would be good. And now so that we can back it up against the wall. Boop. There we go. Beautiful. Does it transform under the full moon? The throne room? The cabinet? Oh, I get it. I see. Yeah, it transforms under the full moon into a castle. We built it during the full moon. This castle's so cool and fun and nice and has such a great ambience for challenging yourself by fighting the queen without a sword or gun or anything. You should do it now. You will get 200 gamer score for it. If you come at me without proper weapons or anything, you're gonna fucking die. Also, AOL, thank you for the egg. Beep. All right, let's see. Are you like good? Are you correct? No, you're fucking wrong. So I need to move this outward? Ooh. Ah, yes, much better. This is very noticeable to everybody.
Car battery!
Ow. Oof. Hey now. You're an all-star. Whatever, it's good enough. A formal invitation to be done in the Denny's parking lot. Surely a fist fight is the most proper way to challenge. It is the most proper way. It is not the most common way. For those unaware, my VTuber lore is that I'm a character from a video game. I'm a boss in the game. And the way that the player fights me is with a gun. If you come at me with only fists, I mean, if you want me to fight seriously, you're gonna get hurt It's because somewhat, like, unless you're also built to withstand bullets, you know? It's not gonna be easy. Unlocked dumbass challenges the Gauntlet Queen without a weapon or armor. Fuckhead. Not by beating her fists. Oh, this is how I got this cool green sword. Not by beating her fists only, but because she felt bad for me for continually trying with fists only as a tiny mouse. I did feel bad, so I did have you made a little. I did make a little sword for you. Hello, Art Fark, welcome. Made a whole comic about me fighting her with a hammer. It's true. It's fucking awesome. It's such a good comic. If one of the mods can link that in chat, that'd be cool. What if I roll up with a fully armored tank? I guess that might not go as well for me. But I could still win, I think. I think I could still win. I could get you out of there. Just pull you out and then beat the shit out of you. Why did you beat up my girlfriend, Zoe? That's fucked up. She wasn't your girlfriend yet. It's okay. I love how me and Maven immediately said no. She kicked her ass. I am not the most powerful. I'm just more powerful than like normal people. That's all. And mice. And soda robots, I guess. Wait, should you also? So this side also be? Hold on. Should you also be like this? If you're gonna go up against the thing? No. I think if I were to see this thing in a store, it would more realistically look like this than this, because they can expect you to put this up against a wall if it's a TV cabinet, but not necessarily against a different piece of furniture or like another wall in the corner or something, you know what I mean? Right, okay, I think no, we're not. Actually, I'm gonna do something else. Come here. All right, let's see how I'm going to test this. Yes, that ledge is much smaller than for the table, but should it be as tall as should it be the same? Well, let's see what it looks like. So I guess I'll figure I'm gonna. Okay, okay. Yes, I know how to do this. This is so funny to me about 3D modeling. A lot of how I do things, there are probably much easier ways of doing them. There's probably like specialized tools and stuff, but I don't like know them, so I just end up just coming up with my own weird little solutions, you know? It's very autism coded, I think. Okay. And then we're gonna do the same thing here. Actually, move you out like this first, and do this and do that. That seems like a little much for a TV. We'll stick with small. And bye. Hi. Bam, bam, bam. Right now I am. Oh, actually, hold on a second. Let me first merge vertices by distance. There we go. I am going to tell Blender where it has to cut the UVs for when we're making the texture. It doesn't always go. It doesn't always work, but It should be fine. Do you have legitimate claim to rule, or are you just squatting in this castle? Also, yes, I'm a queen, not a princess. Like, I call the princess sometimes, that is incorrect. I'm actually also not literally a queen. I do not have legitimate claim to rule, and I'm also not squatting in a castle. I am squatting in a warehouse that I converted into a castle, and I am a resistance fighter against an evil corporation that wants to take over a city, even more than it already has. So, yeah, there you go. I do have real gauntlets. I do have the real gauntlets. Real life, you know, VTuber stuff not counting. I have 2 real life pairs of real life gauntlets. So, yeah. This is a gauntlet queen over there. She has as much claim to rule as any of the fucked up inbred old people who claim to be royalty. Honestly, true. Maybe even more, because I'm fun about it. Oh wait, did I? Okay. Just gotta do this real quick. There we go. Because you cannot have a polygon. Well, I mean, you can technically. It's just gonna cause a lot of issues, but you should not have a polygon with more than 4 sides. 3 sides, that's okay. 4 sides, that's okay. Anything more than that is bad. And this one just had 6. And I know it looks like 4, but like the sides are these things that are, it's like between vertices. So this technically, this does not. This is like the underside is not 1 side. It's 3 sides and 1. Learning. Out of curiosity, what is the monster thing at the bottom right? That is Derek, and Derek is our friend, singular. He's here. He likes to just sit in while I stream. It's nice. Okay, anyway, doing the thing, I'm productive, etc. Okay. Got these. Oops. And these ones. Maxime. Okay, so that's gonna be from the top out, those ones, and then that, and then up. Maxime, there we go. Good. This is kind of funny because I usually don't stream this early in the day, so there's a lot of new people who like have questions that regulars asked like ages ago, you know. A hat for Derek. Funny hat. A funny hat for Derek. Well, I don't think there's a funnier hat than a rainbow wig. And the sippy that I will take very soon. The tea should be cooled down enough to drink now. There we go. Oh my god! My gosh! Very drinkable tea, very nice. Is a wig a hat? Sure. I have a new question. How are you such a fun and cool person? Aw. I don't know. One day I woke up and I was a little bit different. I had been changed by events that occurred in my life, and then the next day I woke up and was a little bit different and changed due to events and such. And then another day passed, and another one, and another one, and eventually we came here to the person that I am today. That's how it happened, I think. I have a question. Will you wear wigs? I have worn a wig, actually, when I was cosplaying a character from Mekaku City Actors, or Kagero Project, whichever name you prefer. You get one guess as to which one it was. What if I wear someone else's head on my own? That would be fucked up, but I guess you could count that as a hat. It's estrogen, it makes you 250% more fun and cool. This is a science fact. That is true, in fact, yeah. Dear Gauntlet Queen, how do you type with boxing gloves on? I wouldn't know. I don't use boxing gloves. I use gauntlets. The answer to that is you get a bigger keyboard. You use the skill tool on your keyboard so that it's bigger, and then you can type on it normally. I bet you were Miku. I was Miku, yes. That's correct, you got it. Okay. No, don't export it. Stop. What are you doing? Don't do it. You have to smart UV unpack and don't stretch a UV. Ow! Bounce first. Okay. There we go. That's a beautiful unwrap, except it's not that good. Boxer Queen. I should design it for fun. It'd be so easy for a warm-up. I bet it would, yeah. That would be funny. Just skill tool the shit out of your keyboard. Yeah! Dear... I don't know how he sounds. I'm not even gonna. I mean, I do know what he sounds. I'm not even gonna pretend attempt to do a strong bad voice. No. Stop it, Zoe. Don't insult the man. What about that old Katamari Queen design you did years ago? Well, okay, but that's not me. I'm Gauntlet Queen. The Katamari Queen is not an actual. That's just like a fun hypothetical. That's not an actual alt model. He sounds Mexican, so maybe don't try. Yeah. I can speak Spanish, apparently, so that's fine. All right. So what we're doing now is, do you know those things? I explain this every single time I do one of these streams because you know there's new people. You know those things where you have like a sheet of paper and then you cut out and then you fold and then you have like a Minecraft creeper or some shit, or like a little vampire guy. It's like that. We are now making the sheet of paper that you cut out of. That's how texturing works. It's very fun. All right, so. Stitch, Lilo. Nope. It's not really how I wanted it to go. You are here. The fuck is going on there? What? No. Die a violent death. Oh well. That works, I guess. And also the texture back here is the table that we made before. Don't worry about that. Actually, we have to, I'm forgetting something important, something vital. Whatever. New material, which is called Taz block, with a new texture, which is called Taz block. And which is what was that again? 2, 5, 6, 5, 2. Yeah, right. 128 by 128 pixels, and it is a color grid. Okay, there we go. Let me make sure to make it closest so it's nice and accurate and it's not like blurry. And then we're gonna use this to make it all nice and good. Okay, so later. Oops. So what are you? Who are you? Wait a minute. Oh, you're at the bottom. Okay. So we're gonna put you right over here-ish. Stitch. There we go. Do you have to be able to draw to be able to do 3D art? Not necessarily. 3D art, just like, you know, regular 2D art can take all kinds of shapes. So you can definitely like make 2D art that doesn't actually use like drawn textures. You could even do a thing where you're using, like if you have like a weird, I could imagine like a very weird surrealist kind of 3D art where all of your objects, the textures are like from photos, you know, like for the materials and maybe for faces or something. So you wouldn't have to draw for that. I would also say that if you want to learn 3D art, you can also learn 2D art along with it for making the textures and concept art and stuff. Yeah, the Max Payne style, exactly. I would say, honestly, here's what I would say actually. I think you could make it work without, you could make nice things in 3D without using 2D art. I would also just say, like, just start experimenting, start trying stuff out. If you want to learn 3D art, just start doing it. and then if you end up wanting to make proper drawn textures also after that, then you can learn that also. I would also say that if you are gonna make textures, like that's a very different kind of drawn art than regular 2D art, because you don't have to like pose the model and stuff. You just have to draw a flat face and like a belt somewhere or whatever, you know? Like, you don't need to know everything about like the shading and the posing and perspective and all that stuff. It's just flat stuff and it goes on the model. It's fine. I believe in you. To be able to fuck around with 2D and or 3D stuff and figure out what you want to do. I guess trans 3D artist is a fairly crowded field though.
I don't feel safe.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you want to do it, you can do it. Also, Brody, why don't you feel safe? What's wrong, bud? Ooh. Huh? Hello? That's weird. What do I... Okay. We've done it. The task is done. Because we did it. Now we shrink it a little bit so it fits inside the square. Making stuff is not a field that can get crowded. It is a space with many cakes. That is true. That is what it is. If some of you don't know that image, it's like an image with like one baker putting down the cake next to a way bigger cake and it goes, oh man, that cake is way better than my cake. And then we see the audience who's just like, oh my god, holy shit, 2 cakes. And that image is, it's so real. It's so good. It's very important to remember. You don't always have to be comparing yourself to other people in your field because the audience will just be happy that there are more people in the field, you know? All right, let's see. There was... Okay. Right now I'm going to see if there are any squiggly pixels that aren't lining up good, you know? You are squiggly, aren't you? But where are you? Okay. Wait, huh? Oh, right, of course. Okay, so you don't line up exactly, I feel. That's worse. Okay, I will leave you as you are, fair enough. I think we're probably just good. It's a very simple model after all. And then someone made a version where the audience has laser eyes and is angrily shouting, I fucking hate cakes! I know, it's very funny. It's very good. Ow. Ooh. Not quite right. This is the back, so it's this one. Ooh, yes, it is. Ooh. Same business. Oh. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to change you much. Oops. That's not much better. Let's make this one crooked, and that's no good. Yeah, I think that one's just gonna be as it is. So that's that done. And sometimes you gotta bake cakes for yourself. Also true. That is also the most important thing, I think, is that if you can, ideally you can. I understand, like in some situations you just have to make ends meet, so you have to take on a commission that you don't particularly care about. If you can, you gotta make sure that whatever you're making is for you. It's something you enjoy. What's that plugin you've got on the left there with the sprite info header? Oh, that is called Primabase. Preband base. Which is a really good plugin. I think it's like it's not getting updates anymore or whatever. I don't remember. But hopefully you can still find it. That connects it together with Aseprite. So when you draw on, we're gonna do this in a moment. Actually, we're about to do this now. When you're drawing in Aseprite, it immediately updates it in Blender. It's so useful, especially also in streaming, because I don't have to show both things. I could just only show you the model, and you get to see the texture. And you get to see it update on. You get to. I'm making the texture, and you guys see the updated thing. It's good. Ba-dum-bum-bum. I don't work on comms on the weekend to work on stuff I know I enjoy. It's very important to leave some time for your mind to wander. That's really good, Melzenough. I like that. Nice. Alright, so we got that. Now, I am going to put this thing next to the other furniture real quick, just to see the texture size. Yes, it is bigger. So here's the thing about that. These 4 things are all drawn on 256 by 256 size textures. But most, like if you compare it to these shipping containers, for example, are smaller. You can tell. Put this next to each other. You can see how the couch has a much smaller pixels than the container, right? So most of the stuff in this world is like the containers. The walls are like containers. Hello, Redwoe1. Hello, thank you very much for following. The throne is like that, and I made this furniture like this. But if I'm making this like by accident, I didn't realize. But if I'm making the cabinet in the same style as the table and the couches, well, what should I do? Should I make it the same texture size, or should I make it the same texture size as the rest of the world? To make the same thing as do I follow the standard set by the world, or do I follow the standard set by the same type of furniture? I don't know. It's so hard to decide. But I think I'm gonna go with same style as the furniture, because then I can replicate the style better. It'll be weird if I have like the same style, but it's clearly like a different texture size, so I can like have the same little quirks, like these little handles here. I can't do them as good. Yes, I figured it all out. Thank you, everyone. You've really helped me. Go back in the middle. Thank you. That's not the middle. Thank you. Alright, so we are going to export the UV. Cabinet _ UV. You guys can't see the save window right now, but it's there, I promise. Okay. Launching Aseprite. And then we're gonna sync it up. new file, new. Actually, no, not new file. Just gonna drag the old file in, which is sure to be somewhere. I can't believe I was just about to whistle on to the music and then you're doing this to me. Unbelievable. No respect. Fucked up, honestly. How could you? I'm blowing up. I'm exploding. This is the end for me. You've done this. I hope you're proud of yourself. Where's the thing?
Car battery!
Oh! Where's the thing? I can't find it anymore. Hold on, where did I even... Wow. Where did I even save it?
Ow.
Okay, so export. Oh, I see. Ow! That's where it went wrong. I put it in the wrong folder. Okay, now put that in here. Save it as an ASA file. Text. And then open a sprite. Did I put in the wrong one? Yes, I did. Fuck! Okay. Put it in the right folder this time so I can actually open it. And there we go. And then this is also gonna be that. Go to the C. There we go. And now we can get to work. As you can see, we have a beautiful wireframe here of the Amy Rosary. It's good. It's fun. I like it. And now if I draw on it, you guys should be able to see it. Here we go. Oh. Yay, it worked. Okay. Yay! The world is so beautiful. Yay! Cool. Okay, so we got that. So let's start for realsies. I'm going to open the couch as well so I can color pick. Blah. Okay, that's weird. Okay. Okay, first do this. So a little base color. What if you did like the Joy of Painting with Bob Ross, but it's 3D modeling? You could do a joke where you just get really confused by why something isn't working quite the way you expect it to. Because that's 3D modeling, where it's just like, why isn't this sounds like it would be so simple, but the model refuses to fucking work. Vixie, hi, how you doing? Thanks for the egg. Bug? No, just happy accidents. Sure, okay. You know what? That is what he would say. You're right, actually. Okay, we're gonna start at the bottom, which is, I mean, technically, you guys can't see the actual bottom, but I meant like the, whatever. Okay. It's gonna zoom in a bit, actually. There you go. The angers of 3D modeling versus the joy of painting. Who will win, love or hate? I'd like to think love wins. Waking my ass up, what's poppin'? This fucking cabinet that I'm making, look at it, it's so good. It can even It can even do this. Wait, that's on the bottom. Hold on. Let me draw it somewhere you can see it. Yay! Yay. Good. Anyway. Enough wasting my fucking time. Although art is never wasted. Okay. It's popping. It's an arcade game where you hit colorful buttons in time to anime music, and it's really fucking hard. You learn something new every day. When you say anime music, do you mean like music that sounds like it would be in an anime, or do you mean they actually like have licensed anime openings and endings? Because that's an important distinction, of course. Okay. Turn off TV. Wow. Not too much, hold on. How big did I make it into? Okay, I only made it 2 on the other model, so I have to make it 2 here as well. 2 pixels high, that is to say. Bum, bum. Okay. Now we're gonna do the actual bottom, which is over here. Some of it is actually analyzed anime music or in-house covers of anime music. Oh, that's kind of cute. I should save my game. You should save your game. You should go to the transceiver and save your game. This is a reference to Mega Man ZX, which is a game I'd love to stream again. Also the sequel, which I still haven't streamed. Ow! I was gonna stream it for my Transversary, but I didn't last year. I don't remember why. Which is a mystery. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing better. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then draw a line and a line and a line. And guess what? Draw a line. And fill it in. Wait! The Omega of save frequently on the ground. Omega would remind you to save frequently, I think. You're right. There we go. Thanks, Omega. You always know how to remind us through force that we need to save. Okay. Have you saved? Eggman, Omega would remind me to kill all Eggman robots, I think. He can do more than one thing. He's versatile like that. Okay. Next up, let's get to the top, which I'm actually opening the table texture for, because there's overlap there. Oh wait, of course I'm missing something crucial with the style here. What am I doing? If I want to make it these hard edges, we gotta get rid of these. How did I do that again last time? I think I inset this. Yeah, that seems good, I think. Let's see. Yes. And then what I did was, if I do, okay, what was it again? Bevel. Why, this is doing fucking nothing. If I select all of these, and then bevel. Wow, that's doing fucking nothing for some reason. How did you do this? Fuck. It's doing absolutely nothing. Bevel, 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 bevel. Oh, here we go. Ah, there we go. And the world was saved. Oh! Ed Thane Evenway. Thank you very much for following. Bevel. Do just a little bit. Like that. There we go. That's what we were missing. Very good. Cool. I'm sleeping into the EP. Good night. Have fun. Thanks for coming, Brody. Good night. Okay. Do I make it? Maybe I make it just a little bit less though. Could go to, whoa. There. Sure. Now as for the wire, the edges here, I think I want to change that. Okay, if I do this, come on. If I do this, does that kill it? No, good. Okay, because again, like I said, you shouldn't have polygons with more than 5 edges, which we didn't just now, but it would look very ugly the way you had all those edges there, all those polygons. So, I wanna make that look a little bit more, a little cleaner, a little more efficient. And I'm actually gonna go right. Thanks for streaming. Okay, good luck, Edthane. Good luck, and thanks for coming. So let's see if I do it like this. That is much more efficient. Just one big 4-sided one here, and then 2 3-sided ones on the side. That's nice. Good. Now I imagine I might have fucked up the UV, so let's have a look. Oh, hello? Wait, where are you? Oh, the bottom. Right, okay. That's okay. I just do it like this. Merge at last. And merge at last. There we go. Whoops. This did fuck some things up like I'd feared, so we're gonna have to do some maintenance. What the fuck? Right. I think it might be easier if we just redo this. Yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the export UV export again. So we will mark scenes here. Oh god, the texture is all fucked up. Okay. That's alright though. Oops, nope, not edge split. Mark scene. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. What are you doing? Why are you like that? There we go. Okay, I'm kinda hungry. Why am I hungry? I like just ate a meal before I started streaming. What the hell? That fits nicely, good. Move the thing down just a bit. Take the bottom one, put that over here. So who else is hello? Why are you so small? Why are you so small? The fuck? What? Well, I'll fix that later. Anyway, I was gonna say, who else is doing something creative right now? Because some of you guys have said like, oh, I'm writing, or I'm doing my own, I'm working on commissions and stuff. Wait, hold on a second. Didn't I do something wrong? I did. I fucked up. Because I'm first. No, I didn't. I'm awesome. I'm engineering in Minecraft. That's still cool. What you building in Minecraft? I was doing something creative. I was gonna do something creative, and then I got distracted by Stardew. Don't look at me. Alright, sorry. I totally get it though. I have that problem myself a lot. You know, I talked about it yesterday that I started playing Crypt of the Necrodancer because they added Miku. And wow, is it easy to say to yourself, I'm gonna do like 1 or 2 runs. And then, you know, that doesn't, I mean, you definitely do 1 or 2 runs as well as many others. I'm making myself a texture swap for Bomb Rush Cyberpunk over Bell. Cool! I don't know who that is yet, because I haven't started playing it yet, because I want to get a... I kind of want to get a character mod in and stream it. I haven't done that yet, so... Why are you so small, though? Your width? Okay, your width is correct, but you are too small. I'm trying to draw. I believe in you. You can do it, Maven, because anytime you draw, it is so cool. Today, I will do 1 or 2 runs of this game Clueless. Yeah. I got Bell's own textures done, so now I'm making little swaps for the BMX, skateboard, and inline skates. Nice! I for the longest time, I did not know that you could switch to different vehicles, like transportation mods in that game, so it's very cool that you can do that. It reminds me of the greatest game ever made, Go Vacation, where you can be either on a skateboard or roller skates when you're in the city. Very cool. The greatest game ever made, some would say. Okay, so why are you so thin? What is happening to the world today? Shit's fucked. I'm scared, chat. Should be like this? I think so. Yeah, that checks out. What about you guys? Where are you? Oh no, wait, not you guys, sorry. You guys. I'll deal with you later. If I say the number of hours you've been up, that would make Zoe punch into... I've heard that Maven is trying to fix her sleeping schedule though, by like staying awake during the times when she should be asleep. By staying awake, no, by just like staying up so long that when she does go to bed at the time that she should, it'll fix her sleep. I get it. So I'm not gonna, you know, I got decently far making myself a custom model for BRC, but I gave up when I got to the hair. Maybe we should get back to it sometime. What about right now? So you can work while I'm working, you know? What you making? I'm making a cabinet to put a TV. What is that? Oh, fuck. Why do I got the fucking... I accidentally put a dot here, Chad. I never know how to get rid of these. Eraser, eraser, erase, nope. Tool. Chad, help. What do I do? Ow. Gamification is a shallow, kid-friendly minigame collection with nice open space and overly simplistic games. GameSpot sucks. You know not to trust them. Come on. You're better than that. Well, I guess there's a dot here now that I don't know how to get rid of. Anyway, we're making a cabinet to put a TV on. How exciting. It's sci-fi though, so it's cool. But no, you should never ever trust game critics to tell you what games are good or not, because I don't like when they don't say good things about the games I like, so I don't trust them. Oh wait, you're supposed to go down here. That makes sense. And you're supposed to be flipped. And then you're almost right. And now you are. Not yet right. Now you're right. Whoa. Or not? Wait, are you supposed to be upside down? Nope, that doesn't fix it. But... Huh? 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 What? Huh? Well, anyway. Oops. There we go. However... Yeah, upside down. There we go, what about you? Also upside down, you guys were both upside down. This is funked up. Don't worry though, I fixed it, and now the world is beautiful once again. And then we take this thing, and we... upside down. There we go. And then you're all weird and screwy, and also way too small. What is going on? What are you guys... What the fuck? It makes everything way too small for some reason. There. Use critics as a baseline, but keep an open mind and form your own opinions when consuming media, because you might end up with a niche favorite. No, critics all need to explode, I think. I think if anybody ever says something, ever gives like a rating to a game that I like, and the rating isn't the highest one, they should explode about it. Anybody who disagrees with something you say is stupid. And probably like a government agent or something. Sure, that fits well enough, I guess. Although, does it? Where are you going? That's not what I meant to do. Yeah, that fits well enough. Cool. It's that side. I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm still not entirely sure if the Go Vacation thing is a bit, and you never will be. This one's also too small. I don't understand. Wait, is this right? Hold on. Oh no, wait, this should also be flipped. Ow. Isn't this also wrong then? Yo, is it? No. Okay, that one's right. This one is also right. Okay, good. Cool. Oh. Huh? Wait, does it? Hold on. Ooh. Wait, are you wrong? Oh my god. My life is a fucking lie. You should be flipped. And flipped again. There. Now it's upright. Oops, my face. And now I have to move a bunch of shit over. Wait, doesn't that mean? Oh, that means I've been doing everything wrong forever. Oh, why is it so much hard? Whoa! Oh. Anyway, move you over here for a second. Take you guys. Okay, take all of you guys. Flip. Put you over. Are you guys right? Are you guys correct? Do you fit in with my worldview, etc.? Yeah, sure. Cool. Connect. But then I noticed I did something else wrong, so then I move this over, and then I go over here, and I do that, and I see that it's all wrong, and I move you over, and everything works now, and it's good. The world is beautiful, Chad. Okay, flip you. Actually, do I flip you? Show me some letters. Okay, so you are definitely not correct yet. Better. Sure, that seems good. Why are you wrong? What? Huh? What? Huh? What? Wait. No, okay, you definitely need to be like this. That's weird. Oh well. Actually, it's normal. I'm normal, chat. It's okay. I'm so sorry that I'm not explaining what I'm doing. You just have to take my word for it. Flip. Yes. And there we go. Why are you wrong? Me and most people. It's true. Okay, let's see. Did you know that Go Vacation, the best game ever made, is free forever? Just contact Zoe Gauntlet Queen, who lives outside of Nintendo's jurisdiction. Yeah, it's true. I can hook you up with a perfectly legal copy of the game. Okay, there we go. Oh, you are incorrect. Where are you even? You're over here. Where should you be? Something's wrong here. It's this. You go here now. Actually, okay, you go here. And then we are going to put you here and move It's down. And it's a perfect connection. Good.
Woo!
Sonic on top of the left of the screen, the start of where it shows what song is playing. We love not being able to see what song is playing. So good. There you go. Did I miss any eggs? I did. Canberra's egg. I'm so sorry. Here you go.
Oh! Wow! Oh, I wasn't expecting this at all!
What if instead of Zoe there was a worm? Chat. Would you still love me if you were a worm? Oh, I'm turning it around on you. What the fuck is this? Hello? Hello? Thank you. Fuck off. I am a worm. Oh, well. I guess that still doesn't answer the question, though. Always. Lucina kind of has to think about it. Worms have the most love. That's beautiful. I love being a worm. Yay. You know, Zoe, I'm not really feeling your reaction to the barrages today. I think we're going to need another take this time with more feeling. Sure. Next time you do a barrage, I'll put some more energy into it. Love is non-canon in the worm universe. The worm universe? Do you mean the worms universe? Like where they're all little and they have guns and stuff? They're all little dudes with guns and war? Me as a worm, I would be eaten by the Aardvark. I mean, if you're an Aardvark now, like I don't think you don't swap bodies with a worm that's next to you, right? Worms only know war. That's probably true. Just a dumb Bionicle joke? Wait, I love Bionicle. Bionicle worm universe? What? I don't know what that is. It's a fanfiction thing? Well, I don't know much about Bionicle fanfiction, I will say. I just assumed, like, wait, did Technova go to a worm universe at one? What? But no, okay. I didn't miss anything. Now, where the heck are you? What the fuck is this? This looks so weird. But it's normal, actually. It just looks weird, this curve here. Love is Not Canon in the Bionicle universe is like the biggest. Is it? That's one I've missed then. I guess I'm just not that big in the actual fandom scene. I just engage with it on my own terms most of the time. But no, I do get it. I do get the meme now that I'm hearing it. That is kind of funny. I always look forward to your 3D art streams. It's always a nice chill time to see someone creating. Yay. I'm glad. Happy to hear that. I'm just... What do I do with you? Because I am gonna have to do something with you later. How do I do that with the table? Bottom. Right, okay. Well, if that's how I did it before. What the fuck are you doing? Oh wait, I see. Maybe. No, I don't. What the hell? Don't fucking do that shit. Oh! Ow. What if I do both at once? Ah, I see. Bad. How even... Okay, what about the other one? Ow.
Wow, I'm good.
Sure are, Amy. The fuck? I hate this. See, this is one of those things where it's like, why do you do this? Why don't you just... How do I tell you to connect to the other one? Like, instead of getting the other thing to you, why don't you go to the thing? Which is obviously the more sensible option like that. But then you're like that. Like, why are you? What is happening? The world is fucked, dude. Okay, this is definitely not gonna work. How did I? Oh wait, okay, right. Okay, yeah, I think I'm being dumb about this. Man, I was so much smarter when I was making the table. That's crazy. Yeah, that definitely makes more sense. Okay, we are going to take these. Oh, I died! No! Oh, good. That's an easy swap. Didn't even get to take two. Nope. Which is very funny to me. Hello. Where did Vippy come from? That was the victory tune. There's a random victory tune from various games when my health bar is depleted. What was I doing? Right. Okay, so we're taking all of these pieces. Do we get all of them? Looks like it. And we are going to connect them. Why? Okay. Can I just projection view? There we go. Now I just need to line up the pixel size with the other pieces. That's a health bar? Oh my god, why did I not notice that before? I'm so sorry. So that's okay. That's not a problem. But yes, it is. Okay. Ow. Did I miss Vibri? Yeah, Vibri was singing the victory tune for a moment. Let's see. Okay, wait, I think if I select everything and then UV average island scale. Yeah, sure, that'll do, I guess. And then I move everything just a bit. There we go. So now all the pixel sizes of all the UVs should line up again. And look, now we'll be able to very easily draw on here to, so that is good. And then we have to reconnect everything now because of the average island scale, which can unconnect, disconnect things. You're not even the right scale, fuck you. There you go. Everything else seems to be good. So then we just have these pieces, which we will I guess we'll put them here. Yes. Oops. Oops. What are you guys connected to? What? Oh, where'd you connect? Huh? What's going on? What's happening? Stitch? Nope. Stitch like that. Huh, oh wait, shit. Hello? Okay, there we go. You're also not, fuck. This is why, oh god, it's all wrong. This is why I hate average island scaling, and I tend not to just not do it. because you always get little annoyances like this. I love your mutant eyeball clownosaurus. That's just Jarek. That's just our friend Derek. He's just hanging out, wearing a fun little hat. He's just like that. He's not a mutant or nothing. Okay, so I will change the size on you. He is looking snazzy. He's really making that work. In fact. Okay, okay, and then take all of you. Oops, you also. Scale you down like that. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we've got all the connections as they should be. We will check the actual sizes later to see if all the pixels are uniform or whatever you want to call that. I don't know. And let's do fuck. Okay. Okay, like this manually. There we go. And you fit over here. There we go. Bum ba da bum bum bum. Okay, seems good. I have to pick furniture with friends soon. Goblin Queen got it easy being able to make cabinets with her Vigigame powers and having an armor of U-bots to move the furniture. It's true, it's quite convenient, but at the same time, I do have to make it all. You just get to pick it up and then you're done. Also, this is all wrong. Where are you? Yeah, no, wait, this is all right. This is okay. It's normal. Should you be upside down? Yeah, you should, in fact. What about you? Are you wrong? No, you're correct. Well, huh? How's that possible? Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. Beep boop. Flip. There we go. Songs of Vibe 3 has. Yeah, it's Anamanaguchi. They're really good. It's from like a really cool album where they experimented a lot more and you unlocked the album by playing a video game that was free. It was really fucking cool.
Ew.
It's the same people that made the music for Scott Pilgrim the game. For those who are unaware who Anamanaguchi are. And they also made a Miku song that became a meme, but only like part of it, where it's like Miku, Miku, hiding in your Wi-Fi. That one, they made that one. Bum, 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 bum. Why isn't this changing anything? I'm confused. Oh wait, maybe... No, what? Huh? The game part of that album was made by the same dude who made Donut County. Really? I didn't know that. That's fun. I actually learned of him through the credit music for Bit Trip Runner, I think it was. Oh yeah! I believe they did stuff for that as well. There we go, there you are. This texture gets fixed if I do this. This one just becomes a different form of broken, so... Yeah. Oh well. Oh! Okay, that's weird. Yep. Well, that's just the issue of working at such a small scale, is that the UVs tend not to like it very much. Sometimes you can fix it if you do triangulate And then whatever else myself. Connect. Yep, that just breaks it differently. Oh well. They also did some music for the for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the anime show that is really good. That I love. Where Ramona is incredibly gender. Flip. Okay. Now, you should also be connected to this one. At least these lines should. So why aren't you? You guys not the same size? No, you are. I think. No, you are not, in fact. But... Huh? No, no, come on! Fuck, dude. Okay, well... Make you bigger over here again. There you go, and then... Now do you line up perfectly? Not quite. Yeah, that's definitely different. Have a breach over here. Also wrong. Gonna build so I can go douse myself in pure energy. Sick. Good luck with the stream. Thanks, Maven. Good night. I hope you fix your sleep schedule real good. Let's see. So like, I think like this should be good. Oops. So do you fit exactly now? No, you don't. You very don't. But now you do. So now if I connect it like this, we see a perfect connection. Except over there. Fuck. But that makes sense because I adjusted the size of this thing, but not this thing. It makes sense. I understand. Although I don't really know how to fix it. How are you? Do I care? Wait, but how are you? But if you're... I've decided I don't care anymore. It'll be fine. It'll look nice still. It's okay. I got a whole castle full of furniture to make. Come on, girl. I'm actually gonna take these and put them over here. Oh, no, I'm not, because that's not possible. I take a sippy, thanks. I pour myself a new sippy is what I do, because I don't have more tea and I ran out of water already. There we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna shrink it. Shrink it. It's too much shrink it. Why are you, why are you not? I was gonna say, why are you not straight? And I was like, oh no. Parents. Not my parents, luckily, but you know. Make sure this is all the right size. I should have made sure these were small enough before I started putting together, really. One more. One less. Boo. Me when I see any angle. I hate angles. I prefer devils. Yeah, sure, that's good. Export to layout. Hey, texture wrapping. It's not my favorite part, I will admit. I don't particularly love it. It is kind of a pain in the ass, and you're just trying to get to the part where you get to do the nice modeling or the nice texturing and stuff. Like the modeling part is fun because you get to like shape the clay. The texturing is fun because you get to paint the clay. And then the UV unwrapping is some esoteric bullshit that I don't like. Yeah. Okay. So let's give this another try. First, I'm gonna make everything one color. Oops. One color. And then we're gonna also, this is important, change the texture so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. And then, ow. Ugh. I'm creating a book nook in my room. Yay! I've been gifted an armchair and I've purchased some extra bookcases for the extra comfy corner. Aw, that's so nice. What books did you get? Oh, bookcases, sorry. But what books are you gonna put in the bookcases? We've gotten to the part where I keep pressing my middle mouse button, which causes me, if I accidentally press it and nudge it to the side, causes me to have my glitchy eyes. So that's good, I think. Okay. I think the glitzy eyes are cool. They are cool. That's what? How? Whoa. Oh, that's normal. That's not though. Where's your thing? Did I just miss one? No. Doesn't seem like it. Okay. Oh, you are upside down like a dumb fuck. I see. There we go. I have many books, mainly about politics. I also have a few mangas and light fantasy. Wow! What mangas do you have? I thought you didn't know what manga and anime was until we met. They don't get as much use as I thought they would, to be honest. They used to get more, to be honest. I used to activate them more when I was like very confused or focused on something. But I've been kind of forgetting, to be honest. Oh, that's way too hot. Ow, fuck. Ow. Ugh. Anyway, honestly, I feel like I've been neglecting a lot of my stuff. I don't use my blush as often, and my sad. Well, I still do, but I used to do more. I guess just because my streams have gotten a lot busier, I don't have that on the mind as much, you know? That's when I first made this model. Or at least this version that had all these redeems. I don't remember if the original 1.0 version had as much going on. Da, 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 da. Ow. Nope. One. Wait, let me show you guys the bottom. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. I am? Oh. That's news to me. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're gonna draw a line between them all. And fill in it. There we go. That's the bottom done. Nice and simple. And now we get to do the top of the fucking Christ. The top of the cabinet. Actually, we're not doing that just yet because we are first taking this color and putting it here. Which will add some much needed depth. There we go. That is nice looking. How did I do this? Didn't I like flipped out when I did something similar with the table? How did I do it? Okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, now we make the top. But how do we make the top? Okay, we do this part first. Am I doing it right? Yes. I also gotta say about, like, speaking of redeems, like facial, or not redeems, sorry, toggles for my face and stuff, I didn't make this model with a whistle face specifically, so all I have is just, which looks fine, it's just kind of like my O, but Queen of Fennec, who I made afterwards, does have a specific whistle face, and it's much nicer. It's very like little dot of a mouth that really looks like a whistle mouth, and it bothers me that I don't have that for the other models. You know, I mean, I do have a whistle face for Bracca's Queen actually, which is just a bird on TV. It's not just a bird. It's Meneer de Uil from the Dutch show De Fabeltjeskrant, which I used to enjoy as a kid. It was actually from way before my time as well. It's just my parents had VHSs, and it was just still airing and stuff. Anyway, Sonic is bugging the first bit of the song name. What is this? It's over now. It was Miles of Smiles, which is from the game Go Vacation. What a good game! Wow, you know. I have the Legend of Zelda manga collection, 13 books of Full Metal Alchemist. I didn't know you read Full Metal Alchemist. Wow. 5 books of Black Butler, and a single book of something called No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular, which I don't remember buying or reading. Oh yeah. I think I know what that is. The last one. If it's the thing I'm thinking of, hold on, let me take a look. Yeah, that's it. It's something that I had tried to get into at some point because I thought the character design was kind of fun. But I did not vibe with it, and no shade on the piece of media itself or everybody who enjoys it, but a lot of people I've met who enjoyed it have not been very good people. Because they relate a little bit too much with it and see it as like justification for being shitty people. So, I don't know. Burn the book. I want to burn the book. I want to burn something. You can burn it. It's your book. This one with the neat girl who got very popular. Does she get popular in it? That's good. Good for her, but I don't know. I don't have good associations with it. All right, let's see. This is very hard to see. Let me really zoom in on this. Okay, so... Oh. That is not a good shape for a pixel to be. Hold on a second. This UV unwrapping, it's so fun. I love this part of the process, chat. This is so good. She got popular, so many people really like the manga. Right, yes, that is definitely true. With this? Yeah, I guess. Sure, whatever. Okay, good. Hold on. Tadokoro-san, if you want the gloomy girl story, it's really very good. The name sounds familiar. Have I read that? Oh yeah, I have the tab open for that right now. Well, I have the tab for it. I don't have it open. I think I tried reading it at some point, but I got distracted. But yeah, that one does seem better. She has the tab open now, Chad. I have a lot of Yuri things in different tabs. Okay, so I got that. Oh, it's like this. Shit, oh, I forgot. No. Okay, yeah, we're good. Oh, wait, no. Okay, okay, wait. Fuck. Okay, do it like this, and then see if it's also crooked here. Yes, it is. Okay, so then we're moving one down, and then we're all good. Cool. Okay, there we go. How many of the tabs you have open are Yuri? Can you say without counting them? I'd say it's like a minimum of 6, which is not a lot per se when you have currently almost 160 tabs open, but still. A while ago I did like a spring cleaning. Ow. Use bookmarks. I do use bookmarks. I use bookmarks for Yuri that I like that are, or well, just comics in general that I like that are ongoing. Also for ones that I've already finished. Actually, they're at the bottom of the list. I do use bookmarks, just not for everything. Only for comics and for things I want to do a voice acting shitpost stuff, and that's it. So this is 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then up we go. And there. Why are you're what? No, whatever, I don't care. I care a little. Don't care enough though. No, I do. Yeah, I care. I'm Karen. I am the carer. It is me. Wait, no, why are you wrong? No, no, stop. Fuck. Where? Oh, pain in the ass. Okay, move you like this. Move you up just a bit. No, but wait, no, but maybe, okay, wait, maybe it's just... No, because that would fuck up the other thing. Because this pixel's perfect right now, is it? Maybe not. Okay, maybe... Oh, God. Oh, God, chat. Oh. Oh, the UV, oh, it's killing me. The UV unwrapping is killing me, chat. I'm gonna die. Fuck. Oh, cause now this one's fucked up. Why is it like this? Maybe that's not so bad though. Maybe that's an easy fix if I... Oh God. Okay. There, okay. It's not that bad. Are you also fucked up on this side, you evil cretin? Yes, you are. Fuck you. Oh, I hate it all. Why are you... You're not even connected! Oh! Okay. Fuck. Okay, do this. Yeah. Yeah, this is my villain origin story. I am going to be so fucked up and evil after this. Okay. Not that bad. We got it. We're okay. We're good. We're fine. We're only living, we're not livid. Whoa. Alright, okay, and then we're actually going to do something really cool. Check it out, chat. Oops. No, over here. There we go. That doesn't look as good as I wanted it to. Undo. What about if I... Oops. What if I do it like this? How did I do it on the table? Consistency is important. I see I didn't do shit. So we're just leaving it like that, I guess. But also, I think on the table, let's go have a look. Table. No, that is just one. Oh, I never... Wait, it actually looks fine. Okay. I was about to be mad, but it's okay. It's alright, Chad. Don't worry. Everything is nice and good forever, actually. In fact, what if I do this instead? What if I were to be so crazy about it? And if I compare it to... Yeah, that is so much nicer! Yay, I win! Cool. Alright, so that is that thing done. And then we are going to do the... Is this the same color? No, it's not. Whoa. What color did I use? Okay, I used tricolor. Wait, no, it is... What is it? What's going on? It's a darker color. Huh. Okay. Go over here. And then we want to do another thing for... let's do one deeper. There we go. And then... like so. Yep, okay, checks out. This is 1, 2, 3. Yes, all good. The world is happy. 1, 2, 3. Go. Here. Over here. And oops. Actually, connect these ones. There we go. That's good. And then, oops. I'll take this color. And we're gonna put that one in here. Which once again will create some nice depth. There. That's starting to look like something, I think. And I don't think it needs to look like much more, because unlike the table, there's no like glass surface here. Although, maybe if I do... Hold on a second. Wait, like that. And then we take you and we fill it. Yeah, cool. This looks nice. I'm gonna do a little thingy here in the corners. Do I want that? Unclear if I want that or not. I don't know if you guys can even tell the difference. If we're on a phone, definitely not. It's much too small to see the difference on a phone. What if I do this? It's nothing. Doing nothing right now. You can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Yeah, alright, that looks good, I think. Okay. And now we have the little lines. That's how you know it's metal, if there's like little lines running everywhere. That's how you know it's sci-fi metal specifically. And these lines specifically will go here. Is it the same color? Yes, it is. I feel like there should be a different one. Oh well, I don't care enough. Or do I? I've been down this road before. Well, I use the same color here. I guess it's fine. Sure. Okay. Oops, that's not what I wanted. That is what I wanted. There we go. She cares. Oh, I'm always carrying. It's crazy. What a hassle. There we go. Nice. And then we're also gonna do one over here. And over here. That's looking like something. I like it. I think it looks nice. This is my favorite part. My favorite part is when you're like, whoa, I get to see it come to fruition. I get to see these shapes that look so nice. I don't know. It's like, oh, I draw the texture and there it is on the model. It looks really nice. That's so cool. I guess, I don't know. It's like, okay, when you're drawing 2D art, right? You see the, obviously you have some moment where you think, oh, this looks very nice, but like you get to see every little step of the process. There's never like a jump for you. But when you're drawing the texture and then you look at the model, there's like a jump. Where it's like, oh, okay, I saw it first without this texture, now I'm seeing it with this change to the texture. And not like the in-between where I'm drawing the texture, because I'm drawing the texture right now. I'm not looking at the model, I'm looking at the texture. Right? Do you get what I mean? I get what I mean. Alright, let's see. what the table look like? Hello? Yes, I see. Ah, of course. Yes, yes. This makes a lot of sense. Thank you, table. So first off, we're going to extend the line. Which might be kind of tough. Does this just work? Ooh, okay, without the thing. Okay, yes, it does for now. Okay, now to shorten it so it's only where it actually needs to be. Okay. No, not okay. What? No! Why are you mirrored? Stop it. No, no, no. No, chat, no. Incorrect, does not connect. Which rhymes. Oh, wait. Beep. Okay, wait, I take you both here, and then I extend you by 1. And now everything is solved. Yay. Why did you do that, chat? Don't blame yourself for it. It's okay. Okay, I'll do it like, I'll do this, whoops, I'll do this one. Did this just work? You just go. Ooh, that's a very, it feels like a very thick pixel. No, I guess it's fine, okay. I'm blaming chat, not me. Melzinov, I have to tell you something about the chat. Which is that you're a part of it. You're a collective, you know? So if you blame chat, you also blame yourself. I'm missing a thing over somewhere down here. Nah, that's chat's fault, not me. You are chat! This should not be that hard to grasp. Okay, up. Just gonna extend it both ways, I don't know, whatever. There we go. I am chat. Thank you, AOL. Thank you for acknowledging the simple truth. I refuse to accept consequences to our actions. Well, okay. That's, we just, like, you can't, if you blame chat, you blame the collective of chat, then you're also blaming yourself. It's fine if you don't want to accept the consequences of your actions. It's not great, but, you know, it's a thing you can do. If one fucks up the many fucks up, we will all be banned at the same time. It's only fair, you know? Da-da-da-dum. Okay. Good. Cool. I'm Chet, and so is my wife. I gotta go though, sorry to get a picture. That's okay, Mel. Bye! I came up with a guy last night when I was watching a Dead by Daylight streamer. A streamer who, whenever he loses a game, just goes, well, you really fucked that one up, Chet. That's so mean. You shouldn't say that to chat. I'm just noticing something. This is 4 pixels, but this one's 5 pixels, even though they should be the same. Actually, it's just 5 pixels. Well, considering... Actually, it is gonna be a problem, isn't it? Fuck! Oh well. deal with it when I get to it. Which I guess is like now. Ooh, oh, that is not what it's supposed to look like. See, that side's nice and clean. That side, not so much. Yeah. Come on, Chad, you can do better than this. Why did you play so bad, Chad? I thought better of you. My hands are off the controller. It's all you guys. Okay, how are you? I see. Wait, in that case, we go to the bottom. But these all seem perfectly normal. Uh-oh. I sayeth. So then, how do I... Is the top normal? Yeah, those are some nice, properly sized pixels as far as I can tell. Shit. Wait, maybe I'm overthinking this. No, I'm not. No, I'm cool and awesome actually. Which one are you? Which one's wrong? It's this one, right? Yes. So why? You should be like this, but then this one's wrong. So I have to fix this, but then the underside ends up looking bad probably. But then again, well, that looks fine actually. I was also gonna say it's the underside. Realistically, you shouldn't be able to see that anyway. Why am I texturing it? I'm texturing it so that like I can use it for like if I ever want to flip it for a bit in like for an image, a render or something in a video. That's why. But other than that, I would not need to. So that's good. But but I do now have to. Which side is it? That side. Okay. Retract this by 1. There we go. Alright, so that's all good now. So now take this one and let's see, put lines, put lines here. I believe that should work. Oh, it sure does. Okay. Okay. Oh, no! Stop being upside down! Don't you know how inconvenient that is for me? Okay, little thing I'm doing. Make it look just a little bit nicer. Check it out, chat. Check it out. Boom. Wow, that changes everything. I know, it's crazy. I'm a genius. Na 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 na. There we go. And then the things in the middle, which are somewhere that I don't know anymore. I forgot. Is this them? I think this is them. Yes. Okay. Like this? Did I do it? Yes. How's that? Oh, that's how. That makes sense. Everything's normal, chat. Everything Used to be normal. Hold on a second. Huh? What? Huh? How's this? Where are you? Are you on the wrong side? You're on the wrong side, are you? Wait, was I looking at? What? Where was I? What's going on? You're on the wrong side! Fuck! Okay. That's not that big an issue though. Flip you upside down. Put you here. Flips you two upside down and put you over here. And now it should be perfectly connected. Yeah, no. Fuck! I hope chat understands that I wash my hands of this failure. This is all on them and they're bad vibes. They should have been in the Dead by Daylight mines for longer. Egg also, esteemed Jester. Thank you very much. Alright, so... okay, here's where that problem comes in, that the thing wasn't the same size as the other thing, Chad. You all saw this coming, of course. You knew this was gonna happen and you could have warned me, but you didn't. It was very much intentional hostility on y'all's part. And I don't think I'm ever gonna forgive you guys. It'll seem like I do, and our interactions will resume being fairly amicable, but there's always gonna be some underlying uncomfortable feeling, because I'll never truly forgive you. All our future interactions will be tainted now. There we go. You know, I'm doing your bit, Jody. I'm doing your bit. That's your bit that you made up. I'm stealing it for my own purposes. I'm patenting it also. Toxic is true. Yes, I'm very evil and vile and such. Hi. Let's do this, I guess. Yeah, just connect them nicely.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so now they should all be nicely connected. Ooh. Oh, that looks so nice and clean. Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, that's so good. Yay. This is great. Aha. I love this, though. It's all worth it. All the suffering. It's like being a parent, I imagine. All this suffering is totally worth it, so you get to see these beautiful, not even end results yet, you know? I can't believe Zoe would do this. So I won't. Zoe's blameless. Thank you. Yes, I am. Thanks. Alright, next up, going to take this, no, this first. And where do I put it? Why I put it, I think just right over there. I think if I just do this. Yes, that checks out. And then we do the same thing here, and my face is messed up again. Same thing over here, and the same thing over here. Good. The fuck is happening? Oh my god. Fuck. Why are you just nothing? You're on the bottom. Why is... Alright. We've meddled with the UV map too much since I last exported, so we have to re-export it. No, not renders, textures, UVs, cabinet UV, there we go, export, and then we go over here and we open it, And we copy paste it, and we close it, and we unlock the layer, and we... Oh, that was actually... It's already unlocked, oops, but now it's all good. And we lock the layer, we don't forget. And then we have to redraw some of these lines now. My face is fucked up again, that's okay. Okay, so that one seems fine. This one seems fine. This one also seems fine, huh? Huh?
Egg.
I thought they were all funked up. What is happening? Also, Rosatera, let me get that egg for you. Thank you so much. Good morning. There you go. It's just like being a parent. You can mold a thing into exactly what you want it to be. And if it doesn't, you keep trying until you're truly unsatisfied. And then you throw it out and start again. Yep. It's just like, why the fuck are you wrong? What is happening? But it's... Huh. How weird, the UV map says that it should be correct. Well, Blender is normal. Why are you... How... That's nowhere near what the UV says. What's going on? Hold on a second, I'm exporting it again. Textures UV, skimming UV. Export UV layout. Okay, definitely copy it. I'm super duper copying it. Okay, yeah, okay, now it checks out. I don't know. I don't know what went wrong. Oh well. So... do it like this. Oops, I'm drawing on the wrong layer, Chad. Chad, why didn't you warn me? I'll stop. No. No. Stop. Okay, it's alright. I thought something was wrong again. I just did something wrong. The only thing that was wrong was me. Unthinkable, I know, but still, that's what happened. Okay, got the other one. What? No. Wait, does that mean the bottom's also... Okay, the bottom's also wrong, so that's okay. I just have to move everything down a little bit. That's okay. Boop. Okay, checks out. My face, fuck. And finally this one. Sounds like this UV is making you upset. Yeah, a little, but you get used to it. It's fine. If I was by myself, also, I would not seem as exasperated because I'm kind of like, I'm playing it up. Maybe. Well, I don't know if I'm playing it up. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but I am. The fact that I am voicing all of my thoughts as they happen probably makes it seem like I'm more bothered by this than... Yeah, I'm vocalizing it more, yeah. Which probably makes it seem like I'm more upset than I am. Because again, it's something you get used to. Yeah, my face. Alright, okay, there we go. Oh, I don't even need this line here. Actually, I could use it still, but I don't. I can make it a little bit less. I can make it less. Or maybe I just make it none. I make it none. Almost. Okay, I know what to do. I do this. Yeah, sure, that works. Okay. Can't believe this streamer is exaggerating her reactions for entertainment purposes. I would never! I don't. I get... I tend to have very... I tend to be very much like... Wow, you know? I do need you guys to know. Never do... Unless it's very explicitly for like a bit, like very clearly for a bit that I'm jokingly exaggerating. I don't really exaggerate or act... like purposely act in a certain way. I'm just like this. If you meet me in real life, that is also what I act like. I'm also very like big movementy and then like and stuff. It's just what I'm like. I'm like made for this. I was manufactured specifically to act like this in front of people. I don't know, it's funny. Alright, so that's pretty good. Wow, wow, wow. And then we're gonna look at the table. Click on the table. Boop. Right, okay, and that is like what, 2, 3 pixels? 3, I think. Yeah, it's probably 3. Ba ba bow. Ba ba bow. Bam bam bam. Oh wait, I was already dead. I was already doing that. I just make it longer now. Oh no. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Wait, we're doing something wrong. Maybe I'm just gonna do this just to be sure. Texture. I did it wrong. That's too many. Is it? No, it's not. Or is it? No. Okay, and that's it. So then I go over here and I take this color and I do like so. Nope, I believe. Yes, good. We've already been going for almost 3 hours, wild. And look at everything we've gotten done in that time. Amazing. Okay. Okay, I think I need to start outlining more stuff here. Let's get those little compartments drawn. And we'll start using this. Should same color, yes. Okay, let's see. Over here. Ba-dum. Yes, it should be good. No, actually a little bit more this way. Here we go. No, that's too much. A little further back towards the center. Yeah, perfect. Right, and then let's see. Where do I want to put the middle? Probably figured it out. Hold on. All right, Chad, I need your help on this. We're gonna do some math, you and me. So starting over here. Let's see, this is 121. What is the middle? What is the midpoint between 121 of 121? Tell me, Chad. $61, surely. 60 or 61. Oh, that makes sense actually now I mentioned it. So it's like 60.1. Depends if you start from 0 or 1. Whoa. That sounds scary, dude. You're putting like variables in here? I don't like that. Mambaleo, mambalina.
Wow, my head's spinning!
Okay, so if it's we're starting from 1, so then it's 60.1, right? I think it'd be 60.1. So 60 and 61 are the middle point together on the texture. So let's do that. 60. Okay, I'm just gonna put this here as a placeholder. So that is not the actual, that is not the middle of the whole thing, but it's the middle of the two cabinet things that we'll be making, so they have to be like the same, you know? And also, Chet, thank you for your help. Okay, so let's do it like this. There we go. Make this a little bit higher actually. Sure. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Only 1, 2, 3. Okay. Then we're going to copy this and put it right over there. Don't love that. Considering, as you can see, the beautiful concept art in the corner. We also want like a little shape at the edge, and there's not a lot of room for that now. So fuck it. I'm just going to move everything. Oh, wait, no, that's fine. Because I don't really need this stuff anymore anyway. Oh. There we go. And then I guess I am just going to move this a little closer. Fuck, come on. Nope, I did it wrong. One more. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's come up with one more. Okay, now let's 4 pixels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not what I wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Then like this-ish. No, Chad, I don't love this. This is not the coolest. This is not Shadow the Hedgehog, I'm the coolest. It doesn't feel like enough. That'll have to do. And then one there. Hold on a second, are these even still the same size? They probably aren't, are they? Oh. Oh, they are the same size. Okay. I get cheesed. Fucking Christ, how could this happen to me? Completely phoned in an assignment. Woo! Doesn't have to worry about it because it didn't want to do it. Yeah, good job. Wait, is this the same? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it is. Why don't I like this? I love the concept art. The concept art is a masterpiece. Oh, I know. It's because we're missing the most crucial element. There. Now I love it. No, don't give pupils. No. Ooh, cool and evil face. What if it was sunglasses? Yeah, it's sunglasses now. With ears. Or whatever. No, I'm done. Where's that TV of the future? That's the next thing we're gonna make. It's okay. It's okay, not worry. Yeah, I guess. Ugh. Man, this is not going as well as I'd hoped. Maybe if I lower everything, make it a little bit. Whoa, Jesus Christ! You guys can see what I'm doing, but it's wild. It's crazy. It's kind of scary, if I'm gonna be honest. Oh fuck. What do you, hold on. What do you got over here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if I shrink this one. And then also, do this? Yeah, I guess that'll do, or whatever. Oh, that's a long message. Activision Blizzard announced today that cancelled game character Gauntlet Queen, who became a cult favorite after announcing her sentence and starting up her own livestream, would be joining the Overwatch roster. CEO Bobby Kotick said on the matter, well, the court says that AI can't own copyright, so as far as I can see, she's up for grabs. The company's stock rose by 12% following the announcement. I don't want to be in Overwatch. What the fuck? This sucks. They're probably gonna ruin my design and just make me look like a generic female character in a skin-tight suit. They're probably gonna downscale my gauntlets. I do wonder what my diversity chart would be like, though. Not very good, I'm just white, but you know. Okay. Ba-ba-ba. Overwatch's first trans character. Yeah, but would it be canon, though? Would... That'd be disgusting if they decanonized me being trans. This sucks. God, that sucks. I don't want to be in Overwatch. God. No. Ew. Ugh. Gross. Overwatch runs you through the diversity machine. You are now Japanese. Well, given my character's influences from Mega Man Legends, which is Japanese, and generally like anime with the eyes and everything, that checks out. I would become Japanese. I don't want to be in Overwatch, dude. I hate this reality. This sucks. I'm gonna do something crazy also over here. Bear with me, chat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of funked up. Wait. Oh, I messed that up. Well, it's more in line with the stuff we've had so far. The other furniture. There's only one way to uncurse this reality. Dino is now also in Overwatch. I'm a real person, so I own a copyright on Jolly. I guess that makes sense. Wait. Wait, do you mean like your VTuber character is a real person? Because I guess in that case, if you're saying like you, Jody, the human, are a real person, like Zoe is also like IRL Zoe is a real person, you know? Too late. You go to the Overwatch machine. Jolly is a real person. Okay. All right. Lore-wise, okay. All right. Fine. Fair. I guess I have to be alone. You're abandoning me. That's so fucked up, honestly. Anyway. I know exactly what to do. I'm so smart, Mamma Mia and everything. If I do this... this will fix everything. I'm unsure if this fixes everything or not. What if I... I go to bed. This is too hard. This is too hard. I go to bed now. I guess that's fine. You won't be alone, you'll be among a cast of 40 colorful characters, some of which randomly change names based on whatever Activision is being accused of this week. Yeah. Okay, let's see, it's the same color, that's the same color, okay. Oh, wait, I'm forgetting a thing. I'll get back to it. Okay. Starting to get somewhere. Ooh, okay. Oh wait, what about... No, that doesn't work. But what if... But maybe if I... No. This is in... Yeah, okay. Do. I am talking to myself. I am mumbling to myself about what I'm doing. Okay, so do it like that. I'm like, oh wait, I'm forgetting something. There we go. Well, that's how I did it. Is that how I did it though? Why would I do it like that? It seems not very good. Well, okay. Okay, Pat Zoe, I'll trust you on this. It feels very dark though. It feels really fucking dark. That feels way too dark. Why is that so dark? I don't trust Pat Zoe on this actually. I think Pat Zoe was a dipshit. There, that's much nicer, much more subtle. Ugh. Can this cabinet run Doom? I don't think it can. I don't think this cabinet is electric. The chairs were electric, the table had electrical components. Not this though. No, but that had Doom. I'm making it. It does what I want it to. Listen. The TV on the future is on top of the cabinet. It can play Doom. So it's fine, don't worry about it. Wait. Okay, yep. Wait, does it check out? No, nothing ever checks out. This is crazy. No, wait. Ah, I see. I understand now. Okay, so I just color pick that. Put it in there. There and there and there and there and there. That's looking like something. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be crazy. I'm gonna be so wacky wild about something right now. That didn't work. You're not over here, are you? No. What? Huh? Huh? What? Huh? Huh? What? Huh? What? Huh? What? But... Huh. Oh, I see. This is normal. It's okay. So I do that. Does this look good? Well, it suggests light. It suggests a light source from a specific direction rather than just up. So, no, I will do it without that. Thanks. OJ Simpson has died? Cool. Fucking breaking news. That's something that I think is very funny about streaming, is like when you're just hanging out, streaming like normal, and then someone in chat comes like, oh my god, they just announced that the Queen of England died, and it was like, wow, you know? It's funny, I'll get to like first learn about the news together. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing, which is I could actually just copy this from a different model. Or rather from a different texture, but... Oh, that's nothing. Why is that nothing? Chat, why? Oh, I see. I understand, chat. It's okay. Okay, only a bit of it, please. Only this little bit. Thank you. We can finally uncensor the first episode of Sam Says on Dropout. Yo! Hell yeah, dude. It's a good day. Chat room, I'm making paella. Who wants some paella? That sounds nice. I'll take some. I'm actually quite hungry, so that'd be good. Make you go up. Oh, sippy. I take a sippy, thank you. And a stretchy bus check, I'll do that too. Huh. Okay. Cool. We've got little things with which to open it. Hydrate or hydrate! Wow! I guess, I don't know. I was trying to like strike a pose, you know? One thing that I've only just now come to realize is that like raptor noises, that's cute. I think being a raptor would be fun. One thing I've only now come to realize is that when we look at the other furniture that we've made so far, it's got colors. Whoa! And then we look at the table, the cabinet, and it does not have colors. And I think that's pretty cringe. So I think we should put a colors on it. We've already got blue and pink and like chemical cheese color. It's like, well, actually I think it's just orange, isn't it? No, it's just orange. Make it trans colors. I'd like to keep it to one color per piece of furniture, you know? How cringe of it! Mods, take this cabinet away! Yeah, it's what I... Hold on a second. It's like, it's like this color. It's like chemical cheese to me, maybe a little bit brighter, hold on. No, that's not quite it. Hold on a second. There's this color that I just always refer to as chemical cheese. No. Hold on, I'm having a hard time right now. Let me forge this color. It's basically this. This is chemical cheese to me. The color of chemical cheese. What color is it to feel the future? It needs to be complementary. Oh, Hadn't really thought about that. I think the TV might actually not have a specific color because it's going to have a screen that's going to display many colors, you know? But that is a good question. Mods, loose some bolts that this cabinet needs to stay together. Okay, let me actually decide. I will make this... Maybe I'll make it red. I'll make it this. I'll make it this color, I think. That's a good color. Yeah. But what part of the model will be that color? Will it be the top? Will it be the doors? I think I'll make it the doors, because the doors are like the... Other than that it has a top that the TV is on, the specific thing about this is that it's got like two... Wait, I fucked that up. It's got like two compartments you can open. There we go. There we go. You can open it like this. Whoa! Oh, I'm looking at all my games in there or whatever. Actually, the games are gonna be like next to it over here, but you know what I mean. Oh wait. Shit. So erase all of this again. There we go, and then we bring it back, and then we color pick, and then get rid of it. There we go. The doors are the windows to the cabinet. Just so wise. That is such a wise thing to say. Alright, so if I make it the cabinet, the cabinet doors, then how do I want to do that? I think like this, yes. Actually, I think I can just make a new layer.
Hey, come on!
And then, we're gonna fill this all in. Ow. That hurt in my head. I'm half brain damage now. Thank you, concussion. Not again. Whoa, okay. That kind of worked. Hospital. I very much like the phrase hospital. Oh, that's not it. That's also not quite it. Nope. 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 Yeah. Okay, cool. So that is the... I'd say that's the front done. Let me go compare it to the... to this stuff. Oh, I'm missing something. I think it looks nice. What do you guys think of this red? Let me move it, actually, let me just move it to the other furniture so we can compare more easily. That's good. I think that color fits in quite nicely. Why don't I just leave it here? I don't know. Oh, I kind of know actually, but it doesn't matter that much. I can just fix that. All right, so let's have these nice next to each other. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. This is fine. It's fine. But what if it's not? These things must be considered. Yes, in fact, as a matter of fact, I think it's not quite fine. And I will be merging without looking the layers together. And then we're going to replace the colors. All the way around. There. Color. There, it's a little bit nicer. These 2 to 3 smiley faces. I could hide some smiley faces inside if I wanted to. That is an option. That is something we could do. If I was really crazy, I would actually like model the inside so you literally could open it, which would be not really something you would generally do with some low poly furniture like this. But you could. I think what I would more likely do is I would have it plain on the inside, so if you open it, there's just like there's a texture of what the inside would have looked like, you know? Like bookcases in Animal Crossing Wild World.
Hi!
Hello, Glaster. Oh, am I doing it wrong? No, I'm not. I'm awesome. Am I doing it wrong? I might be doing it wrong. No, I like this the way it is. Yes, this is good. Okay, cool. So... over down here. Okay, and they have this, so we'll just go get that. Put that in there. Oops. There we go.
Egg.
Okay. And Glaster, thank you very much for the egg, which finishes the first egg stack. A little later than that usually happens, but that's because it's an early stream. It's because it's normal and nice. I think I'm out of drink. We've also been going for about 2.5 hours, and I do have some stuff to do in the evening, so maybe this is just a good stopping point. I'll likely be finishing this cabinet off stream, or if not, then you will hear about it and I'll do another stream. Actually, there's one more thing I want to do before I forget. Which is take this and put it over here, over here, over here, and over here. Good, cool. Wait, not cool yet. There, now we're cool. Now it's all good. Mods, seal this cabinet beneath the earth so that its disturbing lack of smiley faces may never bother another soul again. It is fucked up, but it also had to happen. Phew. Yeah, I think it's about time that I got some dinner and stuff before I have my evening plans. But I think that this is quite nice. I do hope that the more I do this, the faster I'll get at it, because I kind of feel like I should be able to do more than this in 3.5 hours, but that's okay. God, this bothers me though. I know that it should look like this because it's the back where it's flat, but that looks so weird to me. I'll tinker with it a little bit or something. Yes, Dunmesh episode 15 is out, and I do know because the evening plans is that I'm going to watch Dungeon Meshi, the new episode with a friend. That is in fact my evening plans. And also we're gonna watch some other stuff, but you know, it's whatever. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for helping me, helping with my creative process and all that good stuff. This has been nice and fun and good as well. I'll be seeing you guys on Saturday for Signalis. Mesh Civ, thank you very much for following. Welcome. I'm not gonna do my whole spiel this time. Exclamation point links in chat if you want to find my little website with all my links, and you can figure it out from there, it's fine. We are going to raid someone. What targets do we have right now? We got Vixie. We're going to raid Vixie, who's playing Helldivers. Vixie is a fellow member of RxD, was in chat a little bit ago. Very funny. Also very chill. So that's like a good... I feel like Helldivers isn't really a chill game, so I don't know, maybe they're a little less chill right now, but usually they're very chill. So I feel like that's a good transition, you know? From chill work to chill shooting everything or whatever the fuck. I sent my raid message suggestion, this is the TV of the future. I feel like that just sounds like we're talking about streaming though. I think in the future your TV will be a little dude, a little guy. I think that's it. Just that's the whole raid message. In the future, your TV will be a little guy. That's all you need. All right, I'm starting to raid. So thank you guys so much for coming. I hope it was nice. I hope that those of you who worked alongside me managed to get some good work done too. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.